The council chamber floated in space above Axis Prime, a massive ring of metal and glass where the most powerful species in the galaxy met to decide the fate of worlds. Inside the chamber, 12 different alien races sat in their designated seats, each one representing thousands of years of civilization and conquest. The lights were bright, almost too bright, and the air smelled of different atmospheres mixed together by the life support systems. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the chamber, her dark suit pressed and professional, her hands holding a datapad that contained humanity's entire military history. She had been standing there for 2 hours now, presenting Earth's application to join the Galactic Military Alliance. Her voice was steady, but inside, she felt the weight of representing 8 billion humans who waited back home for news. And in conclusion, Elena said, looking around at the 12 council members, humanity requests full membership in the Alliance. We bring advanced technology, tactical expertise, and a commitment to galactic peace. The first sound was a low, rumbling laugh. It came from High Commander Kraithkor, a massive reptilian creature whose scales gleamed dark green under the lights. His species, the Kraith Dominion, controlled 50 star systems and commanded the largest fleet in the known galaxy. He leaned forward in his seat, his yellow eyes fixed on Elena. Tactical expertise? Kraithkor's voice boomed through the chamber. You showed us records of humans fighting each other with chemical explosives and metal bullets. You call this expertise? Another council member joined the laughter. This one was Jothic Prime 7, speaking for the Insectoid Collective. Her translator made her clicking sounds into words. We have reviewed your world wars, millions dead over territorial disputes on a single planet. Such waste, such primitive thinking. Elena felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice calm. Those wars taught us valuable lessons about strategy, logistics, and combined arms warfare. We have documentation of tactics that— Tactics! Kraithkor interrupted, his laugh even louder now. Human tactics involve hiding in trenches and throwing explosives at each other. We have energy shields that make your weapons useless. We have plasma cannons that can melt your ships from 1,000 kilometers away. What exactly do you bring to this alliance? The other council members were watching now, some amused, others simply bored. Elena noticed that a few of them were not laughing. One small delegate, representing a minor species called the Thex, watched her with what might have been sympathy in his large, dark eyes. Elena took a breath and tried again. With respect, Commander, humanity has been spacefaring for over 200 years. We have established 37 colonies across 12 systems. Our industrial capacity is minimal compared to any real galactic power, Jothic interrupted. You have chemical rockets. You have kinetic weapons. You have computers that process data at speeds we abandoned 3,000 years ago. The insectoid's mandibles clicked in what Elena had learned was their version of a dismissive laugh. You are children playing with toys asking to sit at the adults' table. Kraithkor stood up, his full 3-meter height impressive even in the large chamber. I propose we offer humanity a different arrangement. Not membership, but protectorate status. You will provide labor and raw materials. We will provide protection. This is generous considering your limited capabilities. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had expected resistance, maybe even some condescension, but not this. Not complete dismissal. Not the offer to make humanity into servants. Commander, she said, and her voice had an edge to it now. I don't think you understand what you're suggesting. Humanity did not climb to the top of Earth's food chain by accepting subjugation. We didn't survive ice ages, plagues, and our own worst instincts just to bow to— Your legends mean nothing here, Kraithkor said, waving a clawed hand dismissively. Every species has stories of their greatness. Every primitive world thinks they are special. You tell us about your wars, your tactics, your determination. We have conquered species that had all of that and more. What makes humans think they are different? The chamber erupted in agreement. Different council members voiced their support for the protectorate status. Some suggested even less generous terms. Elena stood in the center of it all, watching as the dream of equal partnership dissolved into mockery and insult. Finally, the council called for a vote. The result was unanimous. Humanity's application for military alliance membership was denied. The offer of protectorate status was formally extended. Elena had 30 days to return with Earth's answer. As the council prepared to move on to other business, Elena gathered her datapad and turned to leave. But she stopped at the chamber door and looked back at the assembled aliens. You're making a historic mistake, she said clearly. Every translator in the room caught her words. You look at our history and see primitive violence. We look at it and see a species that never stops learning, never stops adapting, and never stops fighting when we have to. You think our kinetic weapons are outdated? You think our tactics are simple? Maybe. Or maybe we just haven't shown you what we're really capable of. Kraithkor laughed again. Is that a threat, little human? Are you going to declare war on the entire Galactic Council? Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, Commander. We came here for peace. We came here for partnership. But if you force us to show you what human legends really mean, don't say you weren't warned. She left the chamber to the sound of alien laughter echoing behind her. The council members found her words amusing, a final bit of entertainment from the primitive species that didn't know its place. They returned to their important business, discussing trade routes and territorial disputes. Only observer Thakal, the representative of the minor Thex species, did not laugh. He watched Elena leave and then quietly activated his personal recorder. He had a feeling that this day would be important in galactic history. The old powers had dismissed the humans, had laughed at their legends and mocked their capabilities. Thakal had studied history. He knew that the most dangerous moment was always when the powerful stopped taking their enemies seriously. He made a note in his personal files. Recommend monitoring human space for military developments. Species shows unusual psychological resilience and adaptability, may prove more capable than assessment suggests. But his warning went unread in the vast bureaucracy of the Galactic Council. The major powers had already moved on, already forgotten about the angry human ambassador and her empty threats. 3 months later, that would prove to be a fatal mistake. Elena returned to her ship docked at the station. Her security team could see the tension in her shoulders as she walked through the airlock. They had watched the proceedings on the monitors, had heard every insult and dismissal. Ma'am, one of them asked quietly. What do we tell Earth? Elena was silent for a long moment, staring out the viewport at the massive council station. Then she opened a secure channel back to Earth, directly to the United Earth Government Command Center. Tell them the galaxy isn't interested in peace with equals, she said. Tell them to activate Protocol Ragnarok, and tell Admiral Chen that he was right. We should have shown them the fleet first and negotiated second. She closed the channel and took one last look at the council station, where representatives of 12 species continued their business, unaware that they had just made humanity into an enemy. Take us home, Elena ordered. The galaxy wants to see our legends? Let's show them what humans do when someone threatens everything we've built. The ship detached from the station and turned toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. The colony world of New Harmony had been named for the peaceful cooperation between its 15,000 settlers. They had spent 7 years turning the planet into a home, building farms and factories, schools and hospitals. Children played in parks while their parents worked in the agricultural domes. It was everything humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. Then the Kraith warships appeared in the sky. There were 12 of them, massive battle cruisers that blocked out the sun as they descended through the atmosphere. The colony's defense coordinator, a former military officer named James Park, immediately activated the emergency protocols. Alarms blared across the settlement. People ran for shelters that had been built but never expected to be used. James tried to establish communication with the ships. This is New Harmony Colony. You are entering United Earth territory. Please state your intentions. The response came in cold, mechanical translation. This system now belongs to the Kraith Dominion. All humans are ordered to surrender immediately. Resistance will result in orbital bombardment of your settlement. James looked at his tiny defensive force. 3 patrol ships designed for asteroid mining and rescue operations. A few ground-based railguns meant to destroy incoming meteors. Against 12 Kraith battlecruisers, they had no chance. But he was human, and humans had learned long ago that surrender often meant death anyway. All personnel to combat stations, James ordered. Send distress signals to Earth and all nearby colonies. And somebody wake up those railguns. If they want our home, we'll make them pay for it. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The human patrol ships managed to damage 1 Kraith cruiser before being vaporized by plasma fire. The ground-based railguns scored several hits before being destroyed by precision strikes from orbit. James Park died at his post, still coordinating evacuation shuttles that struggled to escape the planet. 7,000 colonists were killed in the attack. 8,000 more were taken prisoner by Kraith ground forces. The same scene played out across 3 more human colonies that day. Prometheus Station, an asteroid mining facility with 1,200 workers, went silent after a brief battle. Chang's World, a research colony studying alien biology, sent one final transmission. They're landing troops. We can't stop them. Tell Earth we tried. Tell them, then nothing. By the end of the first day, humanity had lost 4 colonies and nearly 20,000 people. The news reached Earth 36 hours later, traveling by the fastest courier ships in the human fleet. In the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva, emergency sessions were called. Politicians argued about responses, about diplomatic protests, about whether this was truly an act of war or just a tragic misunderstanding. Then Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen walked into the chamber. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut military short and eyes that had seen combat long before humanity reached the stars. He had fought in the resource wars on Earth, had commanded the first human warship in space, and had spent the last 20 years building something that most people didn't even know existed. "Shut up," he said to the arguing politicians. The room fell silent. Marcus walked to the front of the chamber and displayed a holographic image of the destroyed colonies. Bodies floating in space, burning settlements, Kraith soldiers standing over human prisoners. "The Kraith Dominion attacked our people without warning or provocation," Marcus said, his voice perfectly calm. "They killed 20,000 humans and captured 8,000 more. They did this because the Galactic Council told them humans were weak. They did this because they think we're primitive. They did this because they wanted to see if they could get away with it." One of the politicians tried to interrupt. "Admiral, we need to consider diplomatic solutions are dead," Marcus cut him off. "They died with our colonists. Now we have only one option left. We show them exactly what human legends mean." He activated another display. This one showed ship specifications, weapons data, and fleet positions that most of the politicians had never seen before. Hidden shipyards in the outer system, stealth vessels that had been in development for decades, weapons that bent and broke the standard rules of galactic warfare. "For 20 years we've been preparing for this," Marcus said. "While we smiled and played nice with the galaxy, we remembered what humans do best. We prepare for the worst. We build tools for survival. And when someone threatens our people, we don't negotiate. We win." The room was completely silent now. "I need authorization to activate Protocol Ragnarok," Marcus said. "Full military mobilization. All reserve fleets activated. Rules of engagement hostile. We're going to take back our colonies, rescue our people, and make sure the Kraith Dominion never threatens humanity again." The vote was unanimous. Whatever political disagreements existed, they disappeared in the face of dead children and burning colonies. Marcus returned to his office and opened a quantum communication channel. It connected him to dozens of secret facilities scattered across human space. Shipyards hidden behind gas giants, training facilities on remote moons, research stations where scientists had spent years studying captured alien technology and finding its weaknesses. "All commands, this is Fleet Admiral Chen," he said. "Protocol Ragnarok is active. All fleets are to converge on staging areas. We move in 72 hours. Across human space, ships began to move. Not the civilian vessels that the galaxy knew about, but warships that had been kept hidden, waiting for the day they would be needed. Captains who had trained in secret opened sealed orders. Weapon systems that had never been tested in combat came online. One of those captains was Sarah Okonkwo, commanding the stealth frigate Shadow of Lagos. She received her orders at a hidden base near Jupiter and read them twice to make sure she understood. "We're really doing this," her first officer said quietly. Sarah nodded. She had joined the military after the Galactic Council's rejection, angry at how humans had been treated. She had trained for 3 years on weapons and tactics that the galaxy didn't even know existed. Now she would put that training to use. "They laughed at us," she said. "They thought we were weak. They killed our people to prove it. Now we show them what happens when you make humans angry." Her ship detached from the station and disappeared into the darkness of space, its stealth systems making it invisible to every sensor the galaxy used. Behind her, hundreds of other ships did the same, moving into position like pieces on a chessboard. Back on Earth, Marcus Chen stood at his window, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, human prisoners waited in Kraith cells. Human colonies sat under occupation. The galaxy thought humanity was beaten, thought they would accept their place as servants and laborers. They wanted to see human legends. Marcus said to the empty room, "Fine. Let's show them why humans dominated every environment on Earth. Let's show them why we never stopped fighting, never stopped adapting, never stopped winning. Let's show them what happens when you hunt a predator species." He turned from the window and walked back to his desk where battle plans and fleet movements waited for his approval. The Kraith thought this war was over. They thought they had won an easy victory against a primitive species. They were about to learn that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy wasn't the strongest species or the oldest civilization. It was a species that had spent millions of years learning how to survive against impossible odds. A species that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. A species that wrote the original book on warfare, long before the galaxy even knew humans existed. The Kraith Dominion had started this war, but humanity was going to finish it. Commander Vrathkor of the Kraith Dominion stood on the bridge of his battlecruiser, watching the occupied human colony below. 2 weeks had passed since the conquest, and everything was proceeding according to plan. The human prisoners were being processed. The colony's resources were being cataloged and shipped back to Kraith territory. The primitive defenses had been completely destroyed. "Any sign of human reinforcements?" Vrathkor asked his sensor officer. "Nothing, Commander. Space is clear in all directions. No human ships detected." Vrathkor clicked his claws together in satisfaction. The humans had abandoned their colonies without a fight. High Commander Kraithkor had been right. They were a weak species, all talk and no substance. Their legends meant nothing. "Maintain standard patrols," Vrathkor ordered. "I'm going to—" The lights on the bridge suddenly went dark. Emergency systems kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Alarms started blaring across the ship. "What happened?" Vrathkor demanded. His engineering officer worked frantically at his console. "All main systems just crashed, Commander. Power grid, weapons, shields, everything went offline simultaneously." "That's impossible. Our systems have redundant backups." "How could—" The communication system crackled to life, but instead of Kraith military channels, a different sound filled the bridge. Music. Human music. It was slow and haunting, with drums that sounded like a heartbeat and voices singing in a language the translators struggled to process. Then the music stopped, and a human voice spoke in perfect Kraith language. "You took our colonies. You killed our people. You thought we would accept this. You were wrong." The transmission cut off. Vrathkor stared at his crew in confusion and growing fear. How had humans penetrated their military networks? How had they gotten past their firewalls and security systems? "Get those systems back online now," he ordered, "and find out where that transmission came from." Before anyone could respond, something appeared on the sensors. A ship just for a moment, less than a kilometer away. Then it disappeared again. "Contact," the sensor officer shouted. "Human vessel detected at close range, but I've lost it again."
"Wait, there's another one!"
"No, 3. They're everywhere, but I can't maintain lock." Vrathkor felt his blood run cold. Ships that could appear and disappear from sensors. That could penetrate military networks. That could get this close without being detected until they wanted to be seen. "All ships, combat alert." He broadcast to his fleet. "We are under attack by—" The first railgun round hit his ship's engineering section. Without shields, the solid metal projectile traveling at a fraction of light speed punched through the hull like paper. The impact threw everyone on the bridge to the floor. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship as the round's kinetic energy turned metal and equipment into shrapnel. "Return fire," Vrathkor screamed, pulling himself back to his feet. "We can't target them, Commander. They're using some kind of stealth technology. Our targeting systems can't lock on." Another impact, then another. Each one precise, surgical, hitting critical systems. The humans weren't trying to destroy the ship completely. They were disabling it, taking out weapons, engines, power systems, making it helpless. Across the occupied colonies, the same scene played out. Kraith ships that had seemed invincible were being systematically dismantled by an enemy they couldn't see. Human stealth frigates, invisible to standard galactic sensors, moved through space like ghosts. They appeared long enough to fire, then vanished before return fire could be aimed. Captain Sarah Okonkwo watched her targeting display from the bridge of Shadow of Lagos. Her ship had just disabled its third Kraith cruiser, and her crew worked with practiced efficiency to line up the next shot. "Target their communications array," Sarah ordered. "I want them deaf and blind before we move to the next one." The railgun fired and another Kraith ship went dark. Sarah felt no satisfaction in it, only cold determination. These were the ships that had killed her friends on New Harmony. These were the soldiers who had murdered families and taken prisoners. Every disabled ship meant more human prisoners could be rescued. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Ghost Squadron," her communications officer reported. "They've located the primary detention facility on the surface." Sarah brought up the tactical map. The facility was heavily guarded by Kraith ground forces, surrounded by anti-air defenses. A standard assault would be suicide. Good thing humans didn't do standard assaults. "Signal Ghost Squadron to begin their approach," Sarah ordered, "and get me a firing solution on those anti-air batteries." 30 minutes later, human dropships descended through the atmosphere, their stealth systems making them invisible to Kraith sensors. On the ground, Kraith soldiers guarded 8,000 human prisoners, unaware that death was falling from the sky. The first they knew of the attack was when their anti-air batteries exploded, taken out by precision railgun fire from orbit. Then the dropships appeared, landing so close that Kraith soldiers had no time to react. Human special forces poured out, wearing powered armor and carrying weapons that fired rocket-propelled rounds instead of energy beams. The Kraith had energy shields that could stop plasma and laser fire. They didn't have shields that could stop a high-explosive rocket traveling at supersonic speed. The human weapons punched through Kraith armor and shields like they weren't even there. Lieutenant James Rodriguez led his squad through the detention facility, moving with the efficiency of soldiers who had trained for exactly this scenario. They knew where the prisoners were held. They knew where the guards would be positioned. They had studied Kraith military doctrine and found all its weaknesses. "Third floor secure," James reported, moving to prisoner cells now. They breached the cell block and found terrified humans who had thought they would never see rescue. Children crying. Adults who had given up hope. James and his squad started moving them toward the dropships. "Come on, we're getting you out of here," James said to a young woman holding a small child. "Can you walk?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I thought you weren't coming. I thought they'd left us." "We never leave our people behind," James said. "That's not how humans work." The evacuation took 40 minutes. Every human prisoner was loaded onto dropships while special forces held the perimeter. Kraith reinforcements tried to respond, but human air support destroyed their vehicles before they could reach the facility. By the time Kraith Command figured out what was happening, the dropships were already gone, vanishing back into orbit with their rescued passengers. Commander Vrathkor, aboard his crippled ship, watched the rescue operation with growing horror. His fleet had been neutralized. His ground forces had been defeated. The human prisoners were gone, and he still had no idea how many human ships were out there, hidden in the darkness of space. He managed to send one transmission back to Kraith High Command before his communications went down permanently. "Request immediate reinforcements. The humans are not what we thought. They fight without honor, without warning. They use weapons and tactics we have no defense against. They're not primitive. A final railgun round struck his ship's bridge. Vrathkor's last thought was wondering how he could have been so wrong about humanity. Across the occupied colonies, Kraith forces found themselves under siege by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't target, and couldn't defeat. Supply ships exploded before reaching their destinations. Command posts went dark as their networks were hacked and crashed. Soldiers disappeared in the night, taken by human special forces who moved like shadows. The Kraith had expected a primitive enemy using outdated weapons. Instead, they faced a species that had spent 200 years studying every form of warfare humanity had ever invented, and then applied that knowledge with ruthless efficiency. Within 3 weeks of the first attack, the Kraith Dominion had lost every ship they had sent to human space. Their occupation forces were either dead or captured. Their networks were compromised. And they still had no idea how many human ships were actually out there, because they could never see them coming. High Commander Kraithkor received the reports in his command center, reading them with shaking hands. How had this happened? How had the primitive species turned into an unstoppable force? He opened a communication to the Galactic Council, his pride finally overcome by fear. "This is High Commander Kraithkor. I am requesting emergency council intervention. The human species represents a military threat beyond our projections. We cannot defeat them with conventional forces. We need council support immediately. The response would take time to arrive. Meanwhile, Human forces continued their systematic destruction of Kraith military power, and deep in human space, Fleet Admiral Chen prepared for the next phase of his plan. The Kraith had laughed at human legends. Now they were learning that some legends were based on truth. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. 6 weeks after the Kraith invasion of human space, representatives from 12 species shouted at each other while holographic displays showed the complete collapse of Kraith military power. Ship after ship destroyed or captured. Colonies that had been occupied for years, suddenly liberated by human forces that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. High Commander Kraith Kor stood in the center of the chamber, his proud stance from months ago replaced by obvious fear. He held up his clawed hands trying to get the Council's attention. "You must intervene," Kraith Kor said. "The humans are using weapons and tactics that violate every convention of civilized warfare. They attack without warning. They use chemical and kinetic weapons instead of honorable energy weapons. They hack our networks and spread psychological warfare. This cannot be allowed to continue." Jothic Prime 7 clicked her mandibles. "You started this war, Commander. You attacked their colonies. You killed their civilians. And now you complain that they fight back effectively? They fight like barbarians," Kraith Kor shouted. "They don't follow the rules of engagement. They don't respect the conventions that have governed galactic warfare for thousands of years." "Perhaps," a new voice said, "that's because nobody bothered to teach us those rules before declaring us primitives and attacking our people." Every head in the chamber turned. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the main entrance, flanked by 2 human officers in military uniforms. She moved with confidence now, no longer the dismissed diplomat begging for acceptance. She walked like someone who held all the cards and knew it. "Ambassador Vasquez," the council speaker said carefully, "this is an emergency session. You are not invited to—" "I don't need an invitation anymore," Elena interrupted. She walked to the center of the chamber, and Kraith Kor actually stepped back from her. "Let me tell you what humanity is prepared to offer. Complete withdrawal of Kraith forces from all human territory, full reparations for damages and loss of life, a formal apology from the Kraith Dominion and the Galactic Council for the unprovoked attack on our colonies, and permanent membership in this council with full voting rights." Kraith Kor's laugh was bitter. "You think you can demand these terms? You think your handful of stealth ships gives you the power to dictate to the galaxy?" Elena smiled. "Look outside, Commander." The council chamber's massive windows provided a view of space around Axis Prime. The council members turned to look, and the chamber fell completely silent. The human Warfleet had arrived. There were thousands of ships, not hundreds, thousands. Massive dreadnoughts that made Kraith battlecruisers look like toys, carrier groups with fighter wings numbering in the hundreds, destroyer squadrons, cruiser formations, support vessels. The fleet stretched across space as far as the sensors could detect. Every single ship had its weapons powered and shields active. Every single ship was in combat formation, and every single ship was pointed at the council station. "That's not possible," Kraith Kor whispered. "Your industrial capacity couldn't build a fleet that size. We've monitored your shipyards. We've watched your production." "You've watched the shipyards we wanted you to see," Elena said calmly. "Did you really think we'd show you everything? We've been building this fleet for 20 years, Commander. Hidden yards beyond the edges of known space, automated construction facilities, resource extraction from systems you didn't even know existed. While you laughed at our primitive technology, we were building the most advanced military force in the galaxy." One of the council members, a floating gas entity from the ethereal collective, spoke in its musical voice. "This is madness. No species builds a military force this large without planning for conquest. You intend to wage war against the entire galaxy." "No," Elena said firmly. "We intend to make sure nobody ever attacks humanity again." "There's a difference." Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stepped forward. He activated a holographic display that every council member could see. "If we wanted conquest, we could have had it weeks ago. Let me demonstrate what we're capable of." He signaled to his fleet. One human frigate, small by galactic standards, broke formation and moved toward a Kraith battlecruiser that had been serving as the commander's escort. The council watched as the 2 ships faced each other. "Your battlecruiser has full shields, all weapons active, and knows exactly where our ship is," Marcus said. "Begin." The engagement lasted 90 seconds. The human frigate's railguns fired from beyond the range of Kraith plasma cannons, the solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds Simply punch through the energy shields as if they weren't there. The Kraith ship tried to return fire, but the human vessel's point defense systems destroyed every plasma bolt before it could connect. Within 90 seconds, the Kraith battlecruiser was disabled, its weapons offline, engines destroyed, life support failing. That was one frigate, Marcus said quietly. One of our smallest combat vessels. We have 900 of them. We also have dreadnoughts that can destroy a planet from orbit, stealth carriers that can deploy 1,000 fighters without being detected, and weapon systems that you don't have names for yet. We could take control of half this galaxy in 6 months if we wanted to. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Every species representative was doing rapid calculations about how this changed everything they knew about galactic power dynamics. But we don't want conquest, Elena said, her voice cutting through the silence. We want peace. We want to trade. We want to cooperate with other species. We wanted all of that when we first came here, asking politely to join your alliance. You laughed at us. You dismissed us. You left us no choice but to prove our worth through violence. She walked slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with each council member. So here are our terms again. Kraith withdrawal and reparations, a formal apology, and membership in this council as equals. You can accept these terms or we can continue to demonstrate our capabilities. Your choice. Kraithkor looked around at the other council members desperately seeking support. None came. The Jothic representative actually moved away from him. The ethereal collective dimmed its glow in what might have been shame. You're threatening the entire galactic order, Kraithkor said weakly. No, Marcus Chen replied. We're offering you a new order. One where humans are respected instead of dismissed. One where military power is used for defense, not bullying smaller species. One where everybody follows the same rules or nobody does. He gestured to the fleet outside. Every weapon system on those ships is targeted at Kraith military installations. We have firing solutions for every major Kraith colony, every shipyard, every military base. We could start a war right now that would end with the Kraith Dominion reduced to a footnote in galactic history, or you could accept our terms and we all move forward as allies instead of enemies. Elena pulled up another display. And for the rest of you, consider this. We know you've been watching human space. We know you've been monitoring our technology. Some of you have been planning your own invasions, waiting to see if the Kraith succeeded. Now you know what happens when someone attacks humanity. We don't just fight back. We win. Completely, overwhelmingly, without mercy. She paused, letting that sink in. But we also know how to be generous to friends. The species that stand with us today will have access to human technology, human trade, human protection. We're offering partnership to everyone who wants it. Real partnership, not the master-servant relationship the Kraith proposed. Observer Thakal, the small representative of the Thek species, stood up. The Thek's Confederation accepts humanity's terms and requests formal alliance status. One by one, other minor species representatives stood. Species that had been ignored or dismissed by the major powers. Species that had been waiting for someone to challenge the old order. They saw in humanity not a threat, but an opportunity. Even Jothic Prime 7 eventually stood. The collective apologizes for our dismissal of humanity. We formally support their council membership and request military cooperation agreements. Finally, only the Kraith Dominion remained seated. Kraithkor looked at the human Warfleet, at the council members who had abandoned him, at the future that was being written without his input. The Kraith Dominion accepts your terms, he said, each word seeming to cause him physical pain. We will withdraw from human space. We will pay reparations, and we formally apologize for our attack on your colonies. Elena nodded. Apology accepted, Commander. We'll send representatives to negotiate the details. But understand this. This is your only chance. If the Kraith ever threaten humanity again, there won't be negotiations. There won't be terms. There will only be the complete dismantling of your species' ability to wage war. Are we clear? Kraithkor nodded silently, his proud species humbled by a force they had dismissed as primitive just months ago. The council speaker called for a formal vote. The resolution was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges. The age of human legends had become the age of human power, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year after the Kraith War, the galaxy looked very different. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in her new office aboard Unity Station, the expanded Galactic Council headquarters that now included a significant human section. Through the viewport, She could see human warships on permanent patrol alongside vessels from a dozen allied species. The war had lasted only 10 weeks total, but its effects would last for generations. The Kraith Dominion had surrendered 3 days after the human Warfleet appeared at Axis Prime. Their occupied forces had withdrawn completely within 2 weeks. The trials of Kraith military leaders for war crimes had concluded 6 months ago, with several high-ranking officers sentenced to life imprisonment. Elena reviewed the latest reports on her datapad. The reconstruction of New Harmony was ahead of schedule, funded by Kraith reparations. Prometheus Station had been rebuilt and expanded. Jiang's world was operational again, with new defensive systems that made it one of the most protected research facilities in the galaxy. But the biggest changes weren't on human worlds. They were everywhere. A tone sounded at her door. "Come in," Elena called. Observer Thakal entered, though he wasn't an observer anymore. He now held the title of Alliance Coordinator for Minor Species, a position that hadn't existed before humanity joined the Council. He had been one of the first to support humanity, and that support had elevated his species from footnote to significant player. "Ambassador, the Jathic delegation is here for the technology sharing meeting," Thakal said. Elena nodded and followed him to the conference room. Inside, Jathic Prime 7 waited with a team of her species' top scientists and military advisors. The insectoid who had once mocked human primitive weapons now bowed respectfully as Elena entered. "Ambassador Vasquez, thank you for meeting with us," Jathic said through her translator. "The collective is very interested in human stealth technology and cyber warfare capabilities." "Of course," Elena said, taking her seat. "As part of our alliance agreement, we're happy to share defensive applications. Though I should mention that several other species have also requested this technology. It's becoming quite popular." It was an understatement. In the year since the war, over 40 species had approached humanity, requesting technology exchanges, military cooperation, or formal alliance status. The Terran Pact, as humanity's alliance network was called, had grown from 3 species to 27. Every month brought new applications. The galaxy had learned that human technology, once dismissed as primitive, was actually revolutionary. Energy weapons could be countered by energy shields, creating a stalemate that had lasted for thousands of years. But kinetic weapons, accelerated to extreme velocities, simply ignored shields. Stealth systems based on human understanding of sensor blind spots made ships invisible. Cyber warfare, developed over centuries of human hacking culture, could cripple entire fleets without firing a shot. Most importantly, human tactical thinking was completely different from standard galactic warfare. Where other species followed honor codes and traditional battle formations, humans studied efficiency and victory. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other, learning from every defeat, adapting to every new weapon. That experience had been refined into a military doctrine that the rest of the galaxy was now desperate to understand. After the meeting with the Jathic, Elena made her way to the military section of the station. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen had an office there, though he spent most of his time on his flagship. Today, however, he was in, reviewing reports from the fleet. "Admiral," Elena said as she entered. "Do you have a moment?" Marcus looked up and smiled slightly. He had aged in the past year, the stress of commanding the largest military operation in human history showing in new lines on his face. But there was also satisfaction there. He had done what he set out to do, kept humanity safe and earned the respect of the galaxy. "Always have time for the woman who started this whole thing," Marcus said. "What's on your mind?" Elena sat down across from him. "I've been thinking about what happens next. We won the war. We earned our place at the Council. We have more allies than we know what to do with. But what's our long-term plan? We can't maintain this fleet size forever, and I'm worried about what message it sends." Marcus nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about that too. The fleet scared the galaxy into respecting us. But fear isn't the same as trust. If we want real peace, we need to show that we're not just another empire waiting to conquer everyone." He pulled up a document on his display. "I've been working on a proposal. We maintain a defensive fleet, strong enough that nobody will risk attacking us again. But we also start downsizing the offensive capabilities. Some of those dreadnoughts get converted to colony ships. Some of the carriers become mobile hospitals and disaster response units. We keep the teeth, but we also show that we can help build instead of just destroy. Elena read through the proposal. It was exactly what humanity needed. Strength combined with compassion, power used for protection, not domination. The Council will support this? She asked. They will if we present it right, Marcus said. Nobody wants us as enemies. But nobody trusts us completely yet either. If we show that we're willing to use our strength to help others, that changes the calculation. Over the next 6 months, the proposal became reality. Human dreadnoughts were refitted with medical facilities and deployed to disaster zones across the galaxy. When a plague hit the Metherian Collective, human hospital ships arrived first, saving millions of lives. When pirates attacked trade routes near the Outer Rim, human patrol squadrons eliminated the threat and established permanent security stations. The galaxy began to see humans not as conquerors, but as guardians. Species that had been wary started to relax. Trade increased. Scientific cooperation expanded. Human universities began accepting alien students. Alien companies opened offices on Earth and human colonies. In the Galactic Council war colleges, human tactics became required study. Young officers from 100 species learned about combined arms warfare, about logistics and supply chains, about the importance of adaptability. The textbooks used actual human battles as examples, from ancient Earth conflicts to the recent Wraith War. But humanity also learned from the galaxy. Plasma technology was integrated into human weapons systems. Shield generators were improved using alien designs. Faster-than-light travel became more efficient, thanks to collaboration with species that had been using it for millennia. 2 years after the war, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen officially retired. He chose to do it at New Harmony, the colony where the war had started. 15,000 colonists gathered to hear his final speech as head of the human military. When I took command of our forces, I made a promise, Marcus said, standing before the monument to those who had died in the Wraith attack. I promised that we would never let anyone attack our people again, that we would show the galaxy what humans are capable of, that we would win. He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd, young and old, people who had survived the occupation, children born after the war, all of them free because of what humanity had accomplished. We kept that promise. But winning the war was the easy part. Building the peace afterward, that's the real test. And I want to tell you something important, something I learned over these past years. Marcus gestured to the sky where human and alien ships could be seen passing overhead. We showed them our strength. We proved we could fight. But you know what really changed the galaxy? It wasn't our weapons or our tactics. It was our willingness to help. Every time we used our power to protect someone weaker, every time we shared our technology instead of hoarding it, every time we chose cooperation over domination, that's what made the difference. He smiled, and there was warmth in it. The galaxy laughed at human legends. They thought our stories of warfare made us primitive and violent. They were half right. We are capable of incredible violence when we need to be, but we're also capable of incredible compassion. We fight when we have to, but we prefer to build. We can be warriors, but we'd rather be friends. Marcus looked directly at the crowd. So my final order to humanity is this: stay strong. Keep our military ready. Never let anyone think they can attack us without consequences, but also be kind, be generous, help others. Show the galaxy that humans are more than just soldiers. Show them that we're builders, teachers, healers, and friends. That's how we write the next chapter of human legends. The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus stepped down from the podium and walked among the colonists, shaking hands and accepting thanks. He was done with war. It was time for others to write the future. In the years that followed, humanity continued to grow in influence and respect. The Terran Pact became the largest alliance in the galaxy. Human technology continued to revolutionize warfare and industry. Human ideas about cooperation and mutual defense spread to corners of the galaxy that had known only domination and conquest. The Wraith Dominion, humbled by their defeat, eventually joined the Terran Pact as junior members. Their military was integrated into defensive forces, their resources shared with the Alliance. Some humans protested this, remembering the dead colonists, but others saw it as the ultimate proof that humanity had risen above revenge and chosen a better path.